Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have the owner of Craniosacral and Earthly Energy Werx. She's a craniosacral therapist from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Robin Shankman joining us here live today on the podcast and on the Zoomcast to talk more about some alternative ways of taking care of yourself on, well, so many different levels. So welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you here. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners to start?
Certainly. My name is Robin Shankman, and I am a biodynamic craniosacral therapist in Colorado Springs. And I also do phenomenal touch massage, lymphatic drainage, and delving into some other modalities.
What is the website? How do we contact you?
The website is Earthly Energy Werx, WERX, like you said, .abmp.com. And the best way to contact me for an appointment is 719-685-6372 or my
Beautiful.
email,
And what's your email?
rsltenergy@gmail.com.
All right, perfect. Well, before we talk more about all these amazing modalities that you use, how you can help people, let's find out more about you. Where are you from? And walk us through a little bit of your background to get to know you.
Okay. I'm originally from the East Coast. I was born in Massachusetts and raised in Connecticut. Kind of traveled around a little bit to Texas and then ended up in Colorado, one of my favorite states.
And
And
what did you do then?
well, I started off um, working in corporate America, and I worked at the ski resort in Winter Park and some other stores that were in the town. And I just realized that corporate America wasn't really my goal. That wasn't what I was meant to be doing. So I came back to Colorado Springs and started working as a gardener of all things and loved it. Got in touch with Mother Earth and nature and met a gal who did craniosacral therapy. And
Oh,
she encouraged me to go to school. So that's what I did.
oh.
And
And for those out there who might say, well, what is craniosacral therapy? Not even probably aware. Would you mind discussing a little bit about it, what you learned?
sure, sure. It's biodynamic craniosacral therapy is a light touch therapy that works with your central nervous system to release trauma, stresses, and strains on a cellular level. And that's a nice little bundle of a description, but it's so much more. It's working with old traumas that happened as a kid, works with PTSD, everyday traumas that we, you know, have just being out in the world.
Oh.
And it's an amazing therapy, and it's a light touch, and it's clothed and non-invasive. So it's really getting to the core of where the traumas come from.
Interesting. So, I mean, this can really help us all physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? And before we dive into
Absolutely.
more of that, so you found out from a friend about this, and then where did you get the training to become this? And
Yeah, I was at a session with her actually getting craniosacral therapy, and when she told me that I should do this, and she told me that the School of Inner Health that used to be in Manitou, Colorado, which is right next to Colorado Springs, they're starting a class in a week. You need to sign up. And so you had to go through a process and quickly, and I just jumped in and started the class a week later.
yeah. And here you are. So let's talk about some of the modalities because I know besides this, you use light touch therapy, there's lymphatic drainage, but let's continue with the biodynamic craniosacral therapy. Let's talk about some of the things that people can benefit from. They come to you, and would you mind sharing some of the benefits of it and how it can help?
Well, I get a lot of clients that have PTSD, traumas from childhood, uh, anywhere that could start an embryonic situation. So what this does is help release those traumas, stresses, and strains, kind of like a spider web. So we have these traumas that start from the day that we're born. Like that's one of the toughest journeys we go through is
Ah,
coming down that canal, right? So, and then we just pile things on as we grow up. We might get, fall off our bike, we have a terrible breakup, we might have abuse, parents wise or boyfriend or girlfriend wise
yeah.
or anything like that. There's traumas that happen just, you know, could be an accident, could be anything, and they start building up like a spider web in our bodies. And there'll be
Wow.
fulcrums, which are the center of where those exist, and then offshoots. And so they start connecting to each other, and it creates this huge grid in our body. And so when you come in for a craniosacral session, we'll work on whatever the body is ready to release.
Okay.
And then those fulcrums break up. So
Wow.
that loosens that spider web. And each time you come in, something else will release. And so over time, if you're suffering from trauma per se from childhood,
Yeah.
you don't even have to know exactly what that trauma was. Your body knows.
Yep.
And so working with the cerebral spinal fluid and the rhythms of the body, we're facilitating your body to be able to release those traumas.
Amazing.
And yeah, people walk away feeling much better. It's not like you're going to forget the trauma, but you're no longer paralyzed or affected by it.
Now, this work could be done in person, but can it also be done like this over Zoom?
It actually can. We
Wow.
discovered that during COVID, and I've worked on a couple of clients.
Okay.
So that's been a great benefit for the craniosacral world.
Amazing. And then now, what is the light touch therapy that works with the central nervous system? How does that work? That's part of the biodynamic craniosacral therapy?
That's part of the biodynamic craniosacral therapy. So we get in touch with the light hands-on to the rhythms of the body, and there are
Mm-hmm.
three main rhythms that we work with.
Okay.
The first one is CRI, which
Mm-hmm.
is the cranial rhythm impulse, and that's sort of like where we act on an everyday level.
Okay.
And then we start relaxing into the body, and we call this the mid tide. And that's where you start feeling fluctuations in the body. It, your body could actually react uh,
Mm-hmm.
by flinching or whatever. Some people talk about what's going on in their body. And then we dive a little deeper as we move into the session into what we call long tide. And
Oh,
that's where the body is really, really relaxed. It's not quite sleep, but it's deeper than meditation. And this is where the healing can really happen, where the fulcrums can release. And so we call this, it's like being at the bottom of the ocean because it's
okay.
biodynamic stillness. You know things are happening, but it's so quiet down there. And
That's amazing. Yeah.
that's where the beauty comes. That's where the healing comes.
Ooh, all right. Well, let's talk a little more then about the other services. By the way, I'm on the website. I urge everyone to do the same. Earthly Energy, WERX.ABMP.com. And we can find out more about, we're going to talk about the phenomenal touch massage, lymphatic drainage. Which one did you want to kind of go to next?
Well, I guess we could dive into the phenomenal touch because I usually actually end the sessions with craniosacral therapy. But phenomenal touch is a three-dimensional massage with undulating movement. It's kind of like a dance with your client um, with deep tissue and long, hard strokes. And, it just works the whole body. And it's not just static, it's movement also.
Got it. And, for example, you mentioned this can also now this can't be done on virtual though, can it?
No,
Got
no,
it.
this
This is
is
all
like
in person, just
a
making sure.
hands-on
I'm like, can we
massage.
feel the touch? Um, well, what types of things are people experiencing? What type of benefits of this touch massage do you benefit from? And we all know massage, right? In a sense, and
Right.
some of those benefits, but is it similar?
It is similar. It's like a regular massage in the fact that you're getting your body worked on. There is deep tissue. There's, the effleurage strokes and then long strokes. But the one thing that I do a lot of is also stretching and moving and, getting that
Yeah.
body to undulate a little bit in a safe manner. And it's also a very intentional massage. So the client always feels met, like their needs have been met.
And speaking of clients, do you mind if I would love to hear some personal stories about how you're helping people, but I also read some testimonials on your website. Would you mind if I just shared one or two?
Sure,
All right,
sure.
thank you. This person, Kaya Gates, says Robin has incredible insight into the body and is very powerful and effective as a practitioner. She has a well-rounded approach to body work that is fueled by her love of sustainability and the environment that we all reside in. Robin has a well-tuned intuition and makes you feel completely at ease and comfortable during your session. Also, Deborah Hall says you're an excellent therapist. I would highly recommend you to everyone. And there's even a longer one here, talking about how they've had two types of body work with you, Robin. And both times they both were profound and transformative. So she did the phenomenal touch, was quite moved because she says it simply feels heavenly. I could tell you there were like stuck places in my body and mind that were loosening. And at the same time, the touch itself and the movements are very intimate and healing. Later realized, that she was like in an altered state after the work and did a bit of emotional stuff, which came up. So really accomplished a lot. And then she also did the cranial sacral work with you and said she was enthusiastic. She's done this before with someone else, but it wasn't the same. You were willing, to take the chance with her and give her that chance again. And she said it was very difficult. Her body went through a lot, and she had a lot of lessons that she knew she needed from her body. And from the first moment you placed your hands on her feet, the experience was amazing. She said to take a breath, feel the energy, and not to judge it, but just to watch it. She could see a block in the flow of energy near the lower back, and held her hands on her feet. She could see the energy trying to go around the block and down my legs, which did happen. And later, Robin moved up and held that spot directly. I could feel energy pulsing from her arms into the back, and blockage was slowly disappearing. And feeling all this energy movement, basically, she says how she's been able to, amazingly move and feel better, and she feels safe with you, and so much more. So that's just a few testimonials. Could you mind sharing some as well?
Sure. I think the most profound ones that I've had is working with military folk. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, they suffer greatly coming back into the world, and it's a lot different than being in combat. And one of the big things is not being able to sleep or deal with loud noises. And I've worked on a few military men that I actually have gotten phone calls from their wives saying, "Thank you so much, Robin. He's finally sleeping." And so it's just amazing to work with them and see their bodies react because they'll move, they'll release things and kind of flop around a little bit, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And it's their
Mm-hmm.
body releasing some of that trauma that's been held cellularly. And I just hold that space without me reacting. And because if I reacted with them, then that would, jar what their experience is in their healing process. And so that I think that for me has been the biggest, I don't know, aha, great feeling, to actually help and give back to the military that, struggles so much sometimes in society. Um, I've seen people work with trauma from childhood, abuse from childhood, that they know that something happened, but they can't exactly describe the whole thing because we have an amazing ability to block out things that happened to us when we were children, and working through those traumas and realizing that they are okay,
Yeah.
they've made it through, and just the progress that they make from being, oh my gosh, I've been dealing with this all my life, and haven't been dealing with it all my life,
Yeah.
kind of a thing, to where they free up that whole energy process and are able to function better in the world. And it's just, it's wonderful to see.
Oh, well, thank you. Let's remind everyone how we could reach you. Would you mind sharing?
Sure, the best way to get a hold of me is 719-685-6372. That's my phone, and texting is fine also. But my email is rsltenergy@gmail.com. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. For today, there's still a lot more to find out about you to enlighten our listeners with. Let me ask, you mentioned there's a whole bunch of different modalities you use to help so many. Who helps you? Just curious. You go to someone who does this, or you do this on yourself?
I actually get craniosacral therapy from another therapist in town. We do a trade. I think it's invaluable. It's just, unfortunately, healers don't get as much therapy as they probably should, but I try to do it at least once a month. And, our systems get dislodged and unregulated. So it's really nice to have someone to work on me also, to get me back into balance.
Interesting. Well, we would love to hear more. We still have 8 minutes left in your show. So, what else would you like to share with our listeners about you or about the work that you're able to help people with?
Well, the one thing, all craniosacral therapists are different. Some are working with
Okay.
more bony structures, others are kind of working with the organs. And I guess my specialty is more of an esoteric, getting into like the deeper traumas of what they've been going through and not necessarily having to know what they are. And we might go, the sessions are usually quiet, but there are some clients that want to verbalize as they go through because they're very in touch with their body. But some are not. And by the end of the session, we usually come to a close and then we have a discussion about what I felt and what they felt. And most of the time, it's pretty in sync
Mm-hmm.
of where I felt something release, or there was a trauma with their inner child, or something came up. And there's also something that happens in craniosacral therapy that we call an activation. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when the body just really starts breathing heavily, and we're touching on something deep. And my job is to make sure that that
Yeah.
client is either ready to release that, or if they're not, then we resource them, we bring them back into, I guess, what you would call reality, and allow that nervous system to calm down a little so we can maybe piece that out. We're
Got it.
like onions, we take a peel and open up, and then there's another thing there. So there's always work to be done.
Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know you mentioned if someone goes to the website, if you mention this, you'd get $10 off your session, right? Does that still hold true for our podcast listeners?
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Yay. All right. Good to
does.
know. All right. And you also, I was reading, you have a huge interest in nutrition as well. Do you want to talk about that and some of, I know your problems with digestive issues, which I can relate to as well.
Yeah, I've had digestive issues for, gosh, almost 30 years. And when I went to Western medicine, they checked, they did an upper GI, and I had gastritis, inflamed gallbladder, esophageal ulcer, and um, one other thing. Anyway, and they told me not to eat tomatoes
Wow.
and to take Prilosec. And I just didn't feel like that was a good enough, you know, prognosis. So I went into, naturopaths and all kinds of different programs to find out what is going to help my gut the best. And one of the things I found is a product called Juice Plus, which I'm also a distributor for. And it's 17 fruits and vegetables, vine ripened in a pill form. And that just I've been on that for, I don't know, about 14 years. And it's really helped me to maintain a good diet because, as we know, we're all human and we don't always eat the best that we can. And that just makes sure that I get the nutrition that I need. But also just different supplements like digestive enzymes and probiotics and prebiotics, and just learning all about different um, supplements that you can take to help with inflammation. And so it's just an interest of mine. I wouldn't say that I'm a professional at it, but I've done a lot of research on a lot of different things. And Juice Plus has been definitely helpful in probiotics and digestive enzymes.
Interesting. And there's also a website there. I don't know if that's still current. The R. Shankman, something about Juice Plus. What is that?
Yeah, I would have to check to see if that's
Okay.
still working because they went through a process of changing them just recently. So, um, but you can get in touch with me and I can get that ordered for you.
All right. And, is there any challenges, any challenges that have arisen in your life or arose in your life with this business, with this company? Do you mind sharing a little bit about some of the struggles you've had and how you've overcome them?
Well, it's interesting because in this work, people get better. And so my clientele ebbs and flows, and I think that's been the biggest challenge, um, and getting the word out for people to understand it and know what it is. I've had a couple of clients in just this recent past that they don't feel anything, so they don't think it's working. But craniosacral therapy works for 72 hours, and it is doing something because I can feel it. But there are so many people that aren't in touch with their bodies and knowing where the releases are happening, and we just get numbed, by society. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge is, you know, having people realize that this is really working. And there have been a lot of times when people have come in like that and then a month or two later come back because they realize that something actually really did happen and that they need some more work done.
Got it. All right. And in our last 3 minutes together, how did you want to leave off with people about, the work you're doing, your passion about it, and, how you could really help them?
Well, biodynamic craniosacral therapy is just the most amazing therapy I've ever experienced because it is so different all the time. The client will come in and think that we're going to be working on one thing, and sometimes the body has a different idea, and it's just always a surprise. And just I guess the feedback that I get from people of thanks that they feel like that they can work better in the world now is probably the best outcome that I could hope for.
Wow. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And also, I know you also love the great outdoors. Is that
Yeah.
something that you think is important to keep active? Anything you want to share about that?
Oh, absolutely. I am fortunate enough to live in a very beautiful part of Colorado Springs right by Garden of the Gods. And so I get to hike every morning with my dogs. And I ski and I hike and I bike and I just, oh, I just got into paddleboarding too. Um, but yeah, I think it's really important to be in touch with nature and to get our bare feet out there and get the
Yeah.
negative ions into our body. We spend so much time indoors that we lose touch with where
So
we're from.
true. So
And
true. And like to get out there barefoot, grounded outside. Ah, love it.
exactly, yeah. So,
All right. Well, thank you again for being here. Don't forget mentioning the website that you heard it here on the podcast. You'll get $10 off your first session. Website, Earthly Energy Works, spelled WERX.ABMP.com. Go there. And Robin, do you offer initial consultation if someone's interested?
oh, absolutely. If somebody gives me a call or, we talk through email,
Mm-hmm.
um, we have a discussion about what's going on with them and how our fit is. And I also explain that the first
Mm.
session is a sort of get to know.
Okay.
because it's really important for the client to feel comfortable with the practitioner.
Okay.
And I also, if I'm not the one, I have some other craniosacral therapists that I can recommend. I think it's more
Perfect.
important to get the work than not get the work.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and looking forward to the next time we connect. You have a fantastic day, okay?
Thank you. You too. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. I appreciate it. To all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the show's coming right up after the break.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.